Who would like to start? Yes, I'm going to bring the mic around because it's so hard. I know, but not everybody hears well.
Okay, Rob Fagan here. We have a 50-acre woodlot. Does that fit the sort of minimum requirements for size for looking at easement or land trust?
I'll bring the mic back around here. Is that targeted toward any particular person?
Whoever thinks, I don't know if those organizations are looking for specific size of woodlot.
Size of woodlot.
That would fit.
Does the size of woodlot matter in your program?
So right now, as I mentioned, we're a bit of a newer organization. We are generally focusing on 100 acres plus, but we tell folks if you are interested, reach out, and maybe in a few years, once we've got our carbon pool grown to scale, like we like to not say no, but reach out.
Okay.
But no, not right now.
Jaimee?
Oh, my hair is hanging for this, yeah. For the Nature Trust, size usually isn't a limiting factor. Probably 10, 15 acres would be the minimum just because of our costs to get things going. It really comes down to the land itself, and is there, thinking of things like, is there opportunity to grow it, with the neighbors? Are there other protected areas nearby? So there's a lot of factors going in, but definitely 50-acre properties is something that we're able to protect and often are doing properties at that scale.
Great.
Thank you. And Dale, do you have any size limitations in the program?
Sure. I mean, with our acquisition model, which I don't think is what you were asking about, but we'll look at most properties. As we all know, there's a big difference in all properties in terms of quality and accessibility. So 50 acres on an easily accessible road with good forest on it is always of interest to us, and often more interest than 500 acres back the east side of Lake Charlotte and behind 40 kilometers of pulp company road. So it's all context specific, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
We're going to keep you moving, Don. He'll get his steps in. I hope he's got a camera.
Okay.
I was just going to ask if there's buildings on the property. Does that make a difference to any of you?
Good question. Besides buses.
Yeah. Thank you. For the Nature Trust, if we're looking at conservation easements, it's not an issue for us. We often will have zones similar to Jennika mentioned, where there is a development zone, so yard sites and active areas can be used. In terms of fee simple, if the land was to be transferred to the Nature Trust, we generally encourage that, or to work with landowners to help subdivide out homes so that they can be sold separately. We don't have the capacity to manage a house, so it's challenging for us. So we often will either try to subdivide it out beforehand or work with landowners in the community. In some cases where we've had buildings, they've been able to be moved to use for a different site. There was an old schoolhouse up in Cape Breton where we were able to work with a local society who was looking for a building, and they moved that off and were able to kind of repurpose it. So removing buildings is not our ideal if it's a good building that could be used, so we try to work within the community and landowners themselves to see if there's better options.
For us, if it's a primary residence or a home, it could definitely be zoned residential. And if you're thinking more like camps or smaller recreational buildings, those are accessible or welcome still in the working forest zone. So some folks who may have a camp back in the woods, that's fine as well. We just like to know about them, and then we just map them and zone them accordingly. I think if they're dilapidated or a risk, then maybe that's something we would have a little bit more action on if that was of interest for cleanup, but otherwise not a limiting factor.
I think there's going to be quite a bit of overlap here. I mean, with our model, what we're focused on doing is delivering fair market value to woodlot owners for woodlots. If there's a house that can be sold or kept, we'd look to subdivide that out because that's part of to Jennika and Jaimee's point. We're not interested in becoming landlords. So we look to subdivide that out and make sure the landowner's getting full value out of that. But a camp or an outbuilding is obviously a very different situation.
Thank you. Next.
to the lady in the center.
Jennika.
So, if I understood you correctly, you could co-own something and put it in the easement, and then also sell it, and then it's in perpetuity. Is there any way of getting that back? What I'm thinking of is, fine for myself, if I wanted to give it to a niece or a nephew or something on that lot, and they become financially in need of selling it. They could sell it, but by having this easement, does that degrade the price?
So you maintain ownership regardless of if there's an easement on the property. So it's not quite co-ownership model. You would maintain ownership and we would hold the easements.
So you could sell it, but
Yeah.
does that devalue the business?
Yes, yeah, because there's a limitation to not subdivide and develop it into XYZ. It can reduce the property value for sure. I think we like to suggest if the house and the value is of concern, some of our easement holders have subdivided out the house and then just put the easements on the woodlot.
Just pure land.
Yeah, and just pure land, it could definitely reduce the value because someone can't purchase it to build a subdivision, you know. So some of those big billions of dollars may not be on the table anymore. But we like to suggest that folks who are interested in a beautiful woodlot might see the value and pay fair market value for the wood still.
There's no way that you can get it out.
The intention is to set up the easements in perpetuity. So the goal is that the inheritors inherit the management plan and the easement restrictions. Because we're thinking climate change and healthy forests on the scale of hundreds of years. So we go through setting up the easement for the benefit of decades, generations from now. So the intention is that it's attached to the property for forever. So that's kind of the strength of the easement, is that we're hand holding through generations.
Excellent. Other questions right here?
Hi there. I have a question regarding, well, I'm not a forester or a scientist, but I try to stay abreast of the more recent, climate studies and what they're saying. And my question for you, all three of you, is how do you mitigate the risk of a scenario where, there seems to be two big ones. It's going to get a lot hotter and drier. And some of the more recent studies say that the Atlantic meridian current could stop in, by the mid-turn of the century. So how do you prepare for both a world where it could be a lot higher and drier, but it also actually be a lot colder here? And how do you do that and also fulfill all your mandates?
Mind if I get on one first? I feel like you guys do such a good job answering questions that there's nothing left for me to say. Like I said at the outset, I like the sound of my own voice.
I'd love for you to answer, Dale.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to.
Simple answer.
Always simple, yeah. Look, there's kind of two parts to your question. The collapse of the circulation of the North Atlantic that keeps us warmer than we would otherwise. There's only so much we can do about a major catastrophic event like that. It's like getting hit by a comet. If we get hit by a comet, I'm probably not going to be worried about my red spruce regen on the eastern shore. I've got bigger problems to deal with, right? But with respect to the gradual warming of the climate and the changes that we're seeing, there's a lot we can do. And that's, I put forward that that's one of the real strengths of the managed forest, is that we can work with the forest to help promote the species that are going to be spreading the seed that thrives in 80 years. So for example, across southern New Brunswick and the Cobequids, we're seeing a lot more red oak regen and white pine regen than we ever did before. And a few of us are just kind of talking about this, that this might be because of the warming of the climate, because those are two species that we expect to really thrive. And so, our forest management practices in those zones focus on targeting where there's good seed source for white pine and red oak, and where there's well-established regen, and releasing it so that it can thrive in that warmer climate, favoring it over species that might not be as well adapted, such as I don't know, balsam fir and red spruce or something else, right? So active forest management, enlightened active forest management, because active forest management can span the continuum from enlightened to less enlightened. But enlightened forest management is actually, from my perspective, the best proactive defense against, to help our forest adapt. See, simple.
It's very simple.
Got it.
I'll just build off of what Dale's touching on, and our organization would share very similar practices doing improved forest management or forest restoration. I like to summarize all of this theory and calling it climate adaptivity. Any of the management plan suggestions are to increase species diversity, structural diversity, to increase the species that are more southerly. So we know our Wabanaki forest region is an in-between from the northern boreal and the southern temperate. So we can predict that certain species are gonna, as ranges shift more northerly, our balsam fir and our spruce is and white birch is slipping away farther north, and the environment is going to be more challenging for those species to persist. And I think a lot of the recommendations or the work that we can do today is to ensure that there are forests standing in 100 years from now. So what decisions can we make today to ensure that our forests are a bit more resilient, and we have that forest carbon, we have forest habitat for our species, forest services are wide and varied. But I think creating diversity helps withstand from wind disturbance, pest disturbance. So those are things that we know are increased risks with a changing climate. So we kind of think about all of the factors that we're being faced with and try to manage the forest in a way that isn't strictly thinking about economics, but thinking about forest structure and health, and how can we have a healthy forest in 50, 100 years from now.
I see why being last is hard.
I know.
Clean up, thank you.
Just to build, I think the great points were made, and I know from the Nature Trust perspective, some place that we see a lot of benefit thinking ahead to climate change and connectivity, that is kind of these big connected areas. Knowing that there will be, movement of species, and as things change, having these connected areas is really key, and that's where we focused a lot of our work when we're thinking about where we're doing work. Are there opportunities to expand? Is there already protected areas we can buffer and build, whether they're provincially protected areas? And also, again, with that restoration and, while we are on the light touch side of management, kind of just being really aware and working with partners who know more about that than we do to make sure we're doing the best thing we can. We work actively with the province and MCFC on some of the hemlock woolly delgid management. And again, but just being thoughtful, we know, we're a charity, we can't save every single hemlock tree. But are there ones that are going to be most important, again, in a climate future, thinking ahead, that are going to be these most important pockets? And can we dedicate resources to protecting those ones and protecting the rare species that are within those habitats? So we tried to take that kind of high-level approach of, just being thoughtful about where we're doing that work. It comes in a lot of things. We do a lot of coastal work as well. So thinking about, okay, is this island going to exist in 50 or 100 years? Maybe not. But is it right now a critical nesting place for leeches, storm petrels? And if we don't protect it now, when they move in 50 or 100 years, will there even be anything there? So it's kind of that long-term planning, the upfront part is where it has the biggest application for us.
Wow, that gives us a lot of stuff to think about. The idea for having these three excellent speakers here was to give you some exposure, a better understanding of their organizations, what they do, what they can do, and so that if you have interest and need in their services in the future, you would know who and where to call. You'd also be able to advise people that you know other landowners, other family members that have land or have an interest in this sort of thing. So I hope that that's what we were able to accomplish today. And just so for their benefit though, how many here in this room are woodland owners, own woodland? If you can raise your hand, please. That's great. So the vast majority are landowners, which is the objective, and that's great. Good target audience. So, on behalf of all these land, oh, we have one question here. Yes.
Can I make a remark, just,
Okay.
sorry,
No problem.
and I won't be long.
There you go.
As a landowner, and I'm from the island, actually.
PEI.
PEI. I've been over and enjoyed this conference for 5 or 6 years. We're exposed to, and clear cutting, they all start, that we had clear cutting that we didn't want. People, like, it was forced onto us. And I feel that when a cornfield is harvested, is that a clear cut, you know, like, it sure devastates the view and property, like, you know, from short term. And I believe that a clear cut, when necessary, is the next morning, there's something growing there. The problem is not planting, you know, utilizing the opportunity. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Judd. Appreciate that, and appreciate you coming back each year from PEI for the conference. So, on behalf of the whole crew here, I would like to thank all of you for your time and your effort today to be with us. So, thank you very much.
Thank you all for the opportunity.